Hi everyone, I'm Mike Cohen, Senior Director of Product Management for Splunk Observability at Cisco, and we're going to be speaking today about building a resilient future, the stages of observability excellence. So let's start by thinking about a single button click in an application you operate. Now your users see something very simple. They click a button, what they expect to happen happens. We actually know it's far more complex. There's an iceberg of technology that goes on behind the scenes to make that button do what our users expect it to do. But at the end of the day, it's not about the packets we processed or the transactions that were successfully completed or the metrics we collected to monitor all of that. It's about the bottom line, and that's what everyone here helps power. But also, since you're here, you know exactly how hard it is to do that. Technology stacks are increasingly complex, and errors actually cascade across these complex systems. And diagnosing issues in this environment is incredibly complicated, especially because systems are highly interconnected. Problems can be anywhere, and they can actually have a blast radius that spreads across the environment. I spoke recently with a customer that told me about a fiber cut in their environment. It cascaded through their network, affected all their applications, and ultimately impacted their business processes. How do you monitor and troubleshoot a problem that has that sort of impact across your business? It can be very complicated because the answers are actually buried across multiple observability tools that can actually be siloed and expensive to manage. So we at Splunk Observability, now supercharged with AppDynamics, actually help market-leading companies with their most complex tech stacks build a leading observability practice. We help them actually fix problems faster, get complete business visibility across their entire environment, and get and keep control of their data and manage costs. Now, we've worked with enough customers now, and that we have a very good understanding of industry standards, and we've seen customer adoption patterns. And that's helped us distill a number of common steps that our customers follow as they progress on an observability journey towards digital resilience. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to talk about today. This journey begins with foundational visibility, and that means visibility across the entire footprint of your environment, where you actually get a baseline for your applications and infrastructure with logs and metrics together. Now, Splunk's an excellent tool here because it actually brings all that data together in one place, in a unified data platform. So you've got a central point of management, control flow, and compliance for that monitoring. So when something goes wrong, you actually have the information at your fingertips, organized, correlated, and structured so that you can troubleshoot those applications and ultimately get to the root cause of what's going on. The challenge that occurs as users progress past that stage in the journey is actually an explosion of data. They often find that they've gotten too good at collecting data and telemetry about their environment. And it's no longer efficient to collect, store, and manage it. Large swaths of data may actually be unused, and just be costing the enterprise money. In other cases, important data actually got archived and is no longer accessible when you need it to solve a problem. You need to get to the point where you're not just collecting data, but you're actually optimizing the telemetry that you ingest. Now, that can include routing data based on its value to your organization, putting high-value data in a real-time tier so you can access it instantly when you need it, and lower, less time-sensitive data into an archive tier where it can be restored if you need to access it. It can include filtering out unwanted data from your environment, but also transforming data, say from logs into metrics, so you can store it in an efficient manner and do things like real-time alerting. Now, again, Splunk has tools to help you here. We have native tools designed to help you manage a data pipeline and optimize the metrics, logs, and traces that are ingested, but still make sure you can troubleshoot efficiently. Now, the next phase in this journey is actually prioritizing issues based on their business impact. Now, this actually means that you are able to understand how changes in the technology that you own and operate actually affect the underlying business metrics that you care about. Now, we all know how complex our IT systems can be. And it can be hard to correlate business goals back to the underlying IT system they rely on. But it's absolutely a critical thing to do. Without doing so, we're actually slower to identify the issues that actually most affect our business. And it can be difficult to actually prioritize them based on their business impact. But getting to this point actually requires that we monitor not just the health of our IT systems, which we're reasonably experienced in doing, but also start monitoring the business processes that they rely on. Things like the sales that we're completing, user engagement metrics, or user behavior. Achieving this actually aligns IT to the business because now we're all looking at the same set of metrics and the same outcomes. It helps us understand when an outage occurs, exactly what is the effect on our business and how do those IT systems rely upon it. It actually lets us focus on the problems that matter the most. So as different alerts come in, we understand which are really driving our business and affecting us in a critical manner, so we can fix them quickly. It also helps the business side understand the value of the IT systems we're operating, so we can direct investments appropriately. Now, the next leg in this journey is actually shifting from being reactive, solving problems as they emerge, to a proactive posture, where we can actually get ahead of issues and get ahead of downtime, see warning signs, and actually prevent issues before they become full-on outages. Now, this requires us to measure and optimize the end-user experience. Now, end-user experience is also a complicated beast. It has hundreds of components. There's the front-end and back-end code we write. Some of it may be first and some third-party. There's the infrastructure we own and operate. There's APIs, some managed by third-party SaaS providers, that are critical parts of our application. And of course, there's the network that's actually connecting our system together and bringing data where it needs to go. Now, each team that owns and operates each of these components tends to work independently and know mostly about their own domain. But as we get towards proactive response, we need to think holistically about the systems we manage and operate. We need to optimize performance of the application and infrastructure. Users really see the end-to-end performance of the app, and they look for fast applications. So we need to bring together performance data from every component in the experience so we can deliver the results that our users expect and really see the performance that they experience. We also need to understand the end-user journey. Where do users abandon our application or workflow? Where might they leave a purchase unmade or give up on using a site that we've created? Rather than optimizing sections in isolation, we actually need to figure out what bottlenecks are holding our users back so we can focus on what matters and ultimately drive up the business metrics that are most critical. As you move through this part of the journey, you can actually shift from even just preventing problems and get to the point where you're actually driving forward business objectives. And you're actually able to prioritize development time, prioritize investments to the place that matter the most. Now, last but not least, the final leg in this journey is around unified workflows and standardizing observability practices across teams. Now, doing this can actually help you drive up developer productivity and ultimately increase the pace of innovation in your environment. It can also help your teams drive up collaboration with shared data and shared context. So it allows them to solve problems faster as they all look at the same environments and understand how to work together to solve problems. Now, getting here can also be a challenge. It starts with changes in technology and tooling, which helps unlock the potential of your teams and give them the tools they need to actually start working together. Observability is, of course, a critical part of this initiative in making sure that they have tools that enable collaboration. But that's not all that's required. There's also a large degree of cultural change required in this leg of the journey. You need to break down the silos that actually exist between teams so that they ultimately get to the point where they build, own, and operate pieces of their system. And they understand how to collaborate and have those pieces work together to accomplish what the business needs. The result here is actually an organization that can collaborate together and build some of the most critical business outcomes. Now, this story wouldn't be complete if I didn't speak a little bit about AI. Now, if you roll back a few years, it's quite a number of folks thought of AI and observability with skepticism at best, maybe snake oil at worst. But the world's changed and changed considerably. And AI is delivering real outcomes in observability, and it is a critical part of the path to digital resilience at this point. And there's a couple real outcomes we've seen in our customers using AI for observability. The first is just their ability to prevent outages and actually apply, understand a system that can adapt to changes, automatically baseline through adaptive thresholding, or apply anomaly detection to automatically understand changes in their environment without having to tune all of their detection. It also includes the ability to reduce noise and actually accelerate root cause analysis by aggregating similar events together and actually summarizing them into a smaller set of the most critical, actionable alerts that you need to take action on. And finally, the last outcome, and I think the one I think is most exciting, is the ability of AI to actually democratize data and knowledge across the organization. As these tools help you find and fix problems and actually drive investigations, show you the next step in a journey, they can actually take some of the knowledge and some of the tasks that were only done by the one or two people that are the most critical in your organization and bring that to the point where everyone in your organization can actually be on call and help you solve the thorniest problems and solve them very quickly. That's where AI is going, and that's what I think we're most excited about as it progresses in this journey. Now, at Cisco, we work with a lot of great partners, but I think one of the ones we're most excited about is Evolutio. Now, Evolutio works with some of the most complex enterprises in the world who need to observe, automate, and secure their applications. And I'm very excited to have with me today Laura Vetter, the co-founder and CTO of Evolutio.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Laura. Welcome. So, Laura, thank you for joining me today. Why don't you take a minute and just give everyone a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about Evolutio.
So Evolutio is really an observability-focused consultancy company, and we help organizations understand their goals for observability and then build people, processes, tooling that all bring that vision together.
Awesome. Well, so let's get into it. What are some of the common challenges, since you've worked with so many organizations, including a number of our customers, that you see as these enterprises try to achieve comprehensive observability?
So this kind of goes back to what are your goals? So some of the organizations we work with, they just have a problem with basic monitoring. They have a lot of tools sprawl, data spread out in various places. It's hard to pull an entire story together when you have an issue. So just basic monitoring is a lot of times where people need to start. Some other common concerns are if you have partial outages where maybe just a subset of your clients are impacted by an issue, it can be really hard to detect that. Sometimes that takes days or weeks for our clients to detect that. So we have some tried and true ways that you can quickly get after those concerns. And then also just managing cost. A lot of this data is high volume, high velocity. And if you do it, I would say some of the legacy techniques that are out there, it can get really expensive. And a lot of the clients we have, they want to take the cost out.
That's awesome. I guess since we're on the topic of cost, maybe I'll probe on that a bit and say, what have you seen be effective to manage costs within your customers?
So a couple things that you mentioned, logs to metrics. So a lot of people have done, maybe you have S&MP logs that you're using to monitor your network. Those, a lot of times, are very key ways to do monitoring, and people have invested a lot of time in setting those up. But there's a lot of newer techniques coming out in how you monitor networking, and Cisco's leading the way in some of those with the acquisition of Thousand Eyes several years ago, and other things that really makes it where logs to metrics will really reduce your cost footprint and be way more effective long term in using anomalies to detect things. The other thing that is really key is data pipelining. So for observability data specifically, there is a lot of data, a lot of it is not high value, so you need a way that you put everything into archive, as you mentioned, but only the things that need to go to analytics actually go through an analytics engine. Very
cool. Thank you, Laura. One of the other topics I wanted to talk about for a minute is AI. I spoke a bit about AI. A lot of the talks on this stage are talking about AI as well. Maybe I wanted to start at the higher level and say, for all the customers you've worked with, how do you see them employing AI successfully, and where might they be doing it not as successfully and need to hold back?
I think a lot of us that work in the IT layer, we really are focused on our area of concern. But when I see companies that we work with approaching AI, they're really putting together an AI program, a lot of times driven by the board of directors, and they want to increase the velocity that they're bringing products to market, so they're embedding AI in those things. And they also want to just do a better job at using their people. So they're trying to take the toil out of, especially really, I would say, PDF and data intensive jobs where maybe you have a manual or you have to go through all of this data to even make a decision on your next action. So we're seeing a lot of companies, and I'll give it for instance. For instance, let's take insurance as an example. We have a client who is using AI for when an employee is injured and they make a workman's comp claim. So those workman's comp claims adjusters know, okay, I need to look at this file next, and then I need to call this provider, and I need to ask them this question. You can just imagine the amount of toil that's taken out of work when that happens, and it makes a company much more effective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have you seen a number of these AI projects have big impacts on the IT strategy that you've seen within your clients?
Yeah, so I feel like for observability specifically, there's a lot of AI already embedded in these tool sets where you can use anomaly detection, but a lot of our clients aren't really using that effectively. They're still relying quite heavily on thresholds. I think also for AI, you need a lot of standards in the way that you groom the data, put it into tool sets so that no matter how broad the tech landscape is, you're always looking at things the same way and using AI to do that. And I think a lot of our clients are moving in that direction, and it will have massive efficiency gains.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for organizations that haven't yet adopted AI techniques, even the sort of preventative and ML-based ones, that might need to incorporate them in their environments? What advice would you have for folks that are very early parts of that journey?
So I think even in your area of concern, you need a strategy. So you need to say, if we want to get better much faster, we need to make where proactive visibility is top of mind. We're putting insights around how is our business impacted by things, and you drive a standard process through all of those. So none of these are tools questions. A lot of people, when they go after these things, they immediately are like, let's talk to the vendors and see what they have to say. But it's really important that for your organization, you have a roadmap and a strategy apart from the vendors, so you really can align with vendors that are matching your internal roadmap.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I spoke a little bit about observability being a practice, and you did as well. Do you have advice for organizations that are trying to standardize the observability practice part of this journey, right? Where they've actually gotten reasonably advanced, but they really need to modernize their processes as well, and they have very diverse teams.
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned tool sprawl, and it's such a big problem in organization, and it causes a lot of siloed data sets. So it's really important that you work to bring all that data together for correlation reasons and also just ease of workflows. Like everybody's running from the same sheet of music. Everybody can see the same things. And I think companies like Cisco that can pull in networking data into that equation, that's a key differentiator for your portfolio. And a reason why a lot of our clients are moving to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you seen any organizational pushback as you try to drive some of those transformations?
Yeah, there's just so much bespoke development. I talked about like SNMP logs, that's a bespoke development around networking. But every single application that we roll up on, they have a whole bespoke set of dashboards that they rely on, and it's like dealing with 1,000 snowflakes in an organization. So having a strategy where you drive standards that are from the top down, like we're going to understand the business impact of an issue, and then we're going to have a way that we drill down to the data that says, why is this happening, is 100% the way to do it. And if you don't do it that way, you will continue to have all this toil around bespoke development that is just, it's really a waste of toil.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. One other area I wanted to speak for a few minutes about is, we've heard from companies, and you probably have as well, around concerns about vendor lock-in, particularly in the observability ecosystem. What advice do you have for them, and how should customers think about the risk of vendor lock-in and how to manage it?
So vendor lock-in is absolutely a real issue, and it really has not had a solution until probably in the past 5 years with the rise of open telemetry. And I know even for networking people, you're like, why is everybody talking about open telemetry? Why is that such a big deal? And it really is because it avoids vendor lock-in. So you want to be able to negotiate with vendors based on their features, their analytics, how they help you manage costs, how they partner with you on the roadmap. And you don't want to have to stay with somebody just because it's too difficult to move. So a lot of our clients are saying, even though we're a large enterprise, and this is going to be a multi-year journey to get there, we're going to go OTel native. And one thing that's really exciting about Cisco's roadmap here is you guys are one of the only vendors that is supporting OTel native out of the box. Yeah. So that's something that for our clients is just a non-negotiable, and they're not going to work with somebody that doesn't do it, so it's important.
No, that's great to hear, and we're, obviously you made a good point. We have been, highly committed to the open telemetry landscape and investing in it. Do you have any other advice as customers are thinking about open telemetry and how to choose a vendor around open telemetry? What is the most critical thing they should look for at a criteria?
Yeah, I think one of the things about open telemetry is it's extremely good for cloud applications. And when you're looking at cloud applications, there's a scaling issue that is really important, that you need to be able to use automated ways like infrastructure, monitoring as infrastructure as code, where your observability is really part of your data pipelines as you roll out new applications, and even the whole back-end layout of how you do these standard dashboarding techniques, standard alerting techniques. It's really important that you partner with vendors that really can help you automate it across the board. And so I think that's how you get away from the bespoke development. That's how you do it with a toil and cost footprint that makes a lot of sense for an organization. And we have a lot of organizations that are really investing in platform engineering. And what I mean by that is they are re-architecting their entire infrastructure so that they can quickly release new features, so that new applications roll out very fast. And if you want to do that, you need an observability strategy that can go that fast. So you need to partner with vendors that are really allowing you to automate everything.
Awesome. And I have one more question for you. I think at Splunk, we're super excited about integrating with Cisco. And I wanted to know, from the outside, what are you most excited about as seeing Splunk now become a Cisco company?
Hands down, network observability has been like a laggard to be brought into the fold. A lot of times the networking data is siloed. That makes it easy for people to obviously blame the network, but also it makes it hard to pull the entire story together, especially in the environments we have today where there's multiple clouds involved in a single transaction. Some of the data then passes on-prem and comes back out. There might be a third party involved like Equinix. So bringing network observability into the fold as a proper citizen is really important, and I think Cisco absolutely has the right tech stack to bring that all together, especially now that Splunk's part of the portfolio.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. I'm happy to hear you're excited. We're super excited as well. Laura, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. We love working with Evolutio. I'm sure we'll have lots of opportunities to continue to work together.
Thanks for having me.
So one of the things that we talked a lot about so far, you heard it from Laura, I mentioned it as I was speaking as well, is downtime. And I wanted to take a minute and actually just quantify the cost of downtime. We actually worked with a partner, Oxford Economics, to actually quantify the cost of downtime that organizations see. And what we found was across the global 2000 in 1 year, the cost of downtime was over $400 billion. That's $200 million per organization. This was spread across security incidents and IT incidents and outages. And that cost is spread over a number of things. There's the obvious cost, the lost revenue that can occur, which is an immediate financial impact. But there's other financial costs. There's regulatory, fines that occur. There's SLA penalties. There can be legal costs. There's a number of other places that you don't necessarily think of that are direct financial costs. There's also hidden costs that occur as part of downtime. There's impact to your organization. There's time spent recovering from an outage. There can be lost productivity. All of these things impact your organization in a number of ways that you may not immediately think about and you may not immediately measure. In fact, we found that organizations can actually expect an outage to cause a stock price drop of between 1% and 9%. And it can actually take months for that to recover. Ultimately, what this comes down to is companies need to prevent downtime. It's a business necessity. And we've actually been working with a number of customers that have had great success doing that. And I wanted to quickly tell you about a couple of them and walk you through their stories. So one of them is Travelport. So Travelport is a travel supplier that works with over 165 countries. They actually lacked a holistic view of their environment. They were overwhelmed by alerts. They had long detection times. They brought in Splunk Observability and actually had an assigned expert help them revamp their observability practices. They were able to reduce the mean time to detection by 75% and false positives by 95% using these tools. Another one, Rappi, is a Latin American global delivery service. They work with 250 cities across Latin America. They had legacy tools that couldn't handle the 300% surge in traffic they received during COVID. And they actually brought in Splunk Observability Cloud and Splunk Cloud, and they were able to reduce their mean time to resolution by 90%. And the last one I'll mention, Royal Caribbean. It's a cruise line I'm sure you know. They suffered downtime of over $1 million per hour. Imagine trying to explain that to a CIO when every hour you're incurring $1 million of cost. They needed real-time proactive insights across their applications and infrastructure. They brought in Cisco, Splunk AppDynamics, and Thousand Eyes to help with this problem. And ultimately, they were able to reduce their mean time to resolution by 50%. Hopefully, this gives you an idea of how some of our customers are actually prioritizing digital resilience. And hopefully, it emphasizes that doing so, prioritizing digital resilience and going on this observability journey is more important than it ever was before. And more so, the tooling and capabilities are actually richer than they've ever been. So now is the time to think about your observability processes, make an investment, and working with Splunk to do this absolutely pays off. Thank you very much, everyone.